Well, Jason Isaacs, one of the most exciting new shows of the year has been Dig on USA, and everybody's seen the first 9 episodes, but we're all hanging on pins and needles here, waiting for this finale next week.
Well, thanks very much. I mean, one of the great joys about making it, hopefully one of the nice things for an audience, is that it's that rare thing in American television, which is a story with a beginning, middle, and end. So people like Gideon Raff, who created Homeland, and Tim Kring, who created Heroes, they work like the rest of us in that model where you do a pilot, which is a beginning, and if it gets picked up, you do a middle for as long as an audience will take it, sometimes a decade, sometimes 2 years. And then when people stop watching, you might just get to tell a quick ending and tie things up. Whereas this was different right from the beginning. They had a real story, like storytellers, want to do. And so the seeds at the end are sown from the beginning. They knew who would die. They knew where the twists would come. They knew where the reveals would come. And it's all organic, as opposed to nobody's watching, let's have the aliens invade.
Well, with the kinds of production values for this and the fact that you shot, so much overseas and so forth, the people behind the scenes, does it to you as an actor feel more like a 10-hour movie as opposed to a TV series?
Well, it's all the same. I'll be honest with you. If I do a play reading at somebody's in somebody's kitchen, and if I do a 10-hour series, or if I do a movie, my job is to try and tell a story, to bring a human being to life for a start, that you recognize their behavior and their instincts in a moment, and also to be aware of what the whole story is. So yeah, it does feel like a movie in that I knew where it was going. I knew what the horrible pretentious word arc was, but and also you have a sense of what the story is, so you know what your piece of it is, how you can further move it forward. But it's like a movie in as much as it's like a novel or a good song. It's got a real shape, and that's I've been lucky enough to be in some very good television series before, but they have no end in sight. There's no light at the end of the tunnel, so you're just continually rolling the ball forward.
Watching this, I mean, it feels like a mystery. It feels like an action adventure. It feels like a thriller. There's a little bit of humor in there. How would you classify it?
Well, the awful thing about selling television or movies, which I've done a few times, is you always have to compare it to something that's gone before. So I'm sure when they were pitching it and when we were initially doing press, you go, well, it's a bit Da Vinci Code, it's a bit Indiana Jones, it's a little bit Homeland, because they're very complicated characters. But the truth is, it's none of those things, because these are Tim and Gideon are frankly too talented to repeat stuff or regurgitate stuff. I'm hoping that in the future people will say it's a little bit like Dig. It's got politics in it. It's got religious intolerance and extremists in it. The ends justifying the means. It's got mystery and sex, and really what it's got most of all is skillful storytelling. I mean, these are people, if you sit down with them and they tell you about how they got a parking ticket, you're gripped, and it somehow is an incredibly satisfying experience. Someone else could sit down and tell you about getting anally probed by an alien race, and you'll be checking for texts in 10 seconds. It's just, they know how to engage you. And this subject, the end of the world, and some of the real life lunatics that are around us here in America and other places, they've got some meaty stuff to deal with.
Well, you mentioned Gideon and Tim. I wanted to bring them up during this interview. I mean, Tim had Heroes and Gideon had Homeland. Was that, knowing that those projects were prestige as they were, and Homeland still airing, obviously, was that a big selling point for you?
Well, the thing about television, as opposed to film, is a director's medium and television is a writer's medium. And when you find out that people who've made television shows that you've loved watching are A, are interested in you, and B, are combining their talents, it's a bit of a no-brainer. And then really, I mean, almost anything, if they told me that they were dramatizing the life of a fruit fly, I would have been in. But when they tell you that it's about this stuff, I mean, I read the script, I thought it was the initial episode, I thought it was fantastic and gripping, and not just well told, but dealing with a very controversial area of the world, and religion and fanaticism, which is a controversial area for all of us at the moment. And I went to meet them and I said, where'd you get the stories from? Because there's some crazy stuff in there. And they said the headlines, we got it from the news headlines, and we got it from the Old Testament. And I went, well, no, but not all of it. And they sent me scurrying back to my computer. When I found out how many people there are who take the Bible very literally and are actually working towards the end of days, putting money into trying to bring about the Third World War, and those people who were trying to breed a red heifer and clone a red heifer. It not only did I think I've got to do the job because this, the story is great and the character is great and rich and recognizable, but also, holy shit, this is really going on in the world as well. And that's if you can ever tell a story on the screen that is not only engaging but makes people have a conversation afterwards and start searching the internet, then you've really done the job well.
Now, you played FBI agent Peter Connolly. What did you have to do to figure him out beyond just the text on the script?
Well, almost immediately the story begins. He goes off piste. So whatever the FBI rule book is and how they're meant to behave in situations, one of the things, excuse me, one of the many things that attracted me to playing him is he's a real mess. And if you're going to find anybody to try and stop the end of the world, it's not him. He's the last person who should be in charge of doing this. And I knew that his very vulnerabilities, the fact that he hasn't really recovered from the death of his daughter, the fact that he's having sex with his boss and Hesh's character, but they're not romantically involved and he doesn't really want to be. All those interesting, complicated, messed up things about his life were the things that make him most vulnerable to this plot against him and the least likely hero you could find. And so as an actor, it's all very well that someone comes up with a great story which has a kind of action-adventure theme, but they're very dull often if you're the person that's kicking the door open and pointing the gun. This guy's fucked up. Can I say fucked up on Gold Derby? Oh, well, I've done it now. This guy is complicated and his ego gets in the way often, and he really should be sharing information with other people. And his arrogance, his desire to fix something because he didn't and couldn't fix the death of his daughter makes him behave unprofessionally. So I didn't need to do any preparation for that because I can identify with that kind of egomania and insecurity and all the rest of it very easily. And B, it was attractive because it wasn't the usual.
Well, complications and flaws, I mean, that's what an actor is looking for, right? You don't want to play a perfect person.
Well, what you really want to play is secrets. The camera loves secrets. So if you're doing one thing and you're meaning another thing, and then there's a level on which something else is driving you, the audience understand it, but the character doesn't. You might as the actor. Then you've got the three things going on. That's the holy trifecta. That's what I aim for in every scene. So there's the surface of it, there's what's going on underneath, and then there's the thing you don't understand about yourself that an audience is plugged into. And if you can find that in writing, you should grab onto it. You and both of your characters, you and Anne, are it's a complicated relationship. Let's say that. What's it been like working with her? She's fantastic. She's, I've been around long enough, and so has she, not to over prepare. So what that means is the writing's really good. We know essentially what's going on for our characters, and then we just jump in, and it's like an improvised dance. It's not that the script isn't great. It's just I have no idea what she's going to do in the scene. I don't know what direction she's going to take it, and she doesn't really know where I'm going to go with it. And she's incredibly responsive in the moment because she creates a moment. And it's very often not the moment that's on the page or in the place that it's on the page. And so all that stuff is going on, and she's fabulous at being emotionally present. At the same time, neither of us take it seriously at all. So I play some very cheesy music on the set. I've always got a boombox on playing disco or Motown or blues or something, and stuff to make the crew sing along and make the day go by better. And the two of us can be found goofing and making terrible, asinine, immature jokes, and they call action, and we get into the moment. And it's all part of the same thing, which is free yourself up to play. It's just that not everybody comes to play, and Anne really comes to play. And without getting into big trouble, by the way, she's had to wait 7 or 8 episodes before she gets to really kick some ass. And she turns into a badass by the end, which is impressive to watch. And it was impressive to watch her patience because she didn't know it was coming. Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Without getting into trouble, what can you tell us about this finale coming up next week? I can tell you that it is a finale because all roads, there's a lot of times that there's a lot of multi-stranded television that gets created. Many of my friends have been in them, I've watched them, and I like television. I love television. I love good writing. But there's often the case that someone starts out a show that says, this thing is happening on April the 4th, when these forces come together, or when this all plays out. And actually, if you're inside the business, you see that they change showrunners 2 or 3 times. You think, well, I wonder where the original plan's gone now. And they don't really know how to end it. A lot of very smart people will get in a room and work out how to end it. This is different. Tim and Gideon know that all great stories are about their endings, and right from the beginning they knew there's still a big twist left. There's a big action sequence. There's a whole bunch of, how is this stuff going to play out is something I asked them right from the beginning. And at some point, very early on, they said, do you really want to know? And I went, there's some things I want to know. And I went, actually, I don't want to know. And there's a huge stunt sequence. There's, it ends spectacularly, but also intimately. And there is at least one very big surprise left, not just for the audience, but for the characters involved. And I think that's something they did rather brilliantly. They're very, very skillful at. Things not seeming gratuitous, but holding back the turns and twists of good storytelling. But there's no question, I think I said a while ago that there's not that many people left standing at the end. There's already a giant pile of twitching corpses, but there's no question that this is an ending. And so when it's finished, you get that satisfaction of that story's done. It's done. Whether it ends with the end of the world or me saving the world, they'll have to tune in and find out.
Well, looking back over your career, as I was doing a little while ago, getting ready for this, I mean, you've done the blockbusters, you've done indie movies, you've done stage, you've done TV,
it's remarkable.
All kinds of budgets. Do you have a preference?
That I'm still getting paid to pretend to be other people.
Of all of those, though, do you have a preference, or is there anything different in your mindset when you're doing different kinds of projects?
I just, the budget's irrelevant. I mean, I don't want to say this to any future employers, but I don't really work for money. I mean, I do need money because I've got a wife and kids and stuff, but I'm often going off to do films for, 20 cents or for free. And it's all exactly the same. The thing I'm after, beyond I have to fill the fridge and, pay for medical insurance, I just love storytelling. I'm curious about human beings in dramatic situations, often, sometimes not. I've never quite worked out, or I'm infinitely curious about what makes people love, hate, behave well, behave badly. Everybody always thinks they're right. Everything they do, all the characters in Dig, for instance, think they're doing the right thing. Whether it's someone who thinks that it's okay to kill 6 billion people so that Jesus can walk the earth again, or me who thinks they're doing the right thing. So I've never lost my curiosity, and it doesn't really matter to me if there's a giant green screen stage or it's two people doing dinner theater. I like walking in other people's shoes. I find it helpful to me, and actually I do think I used to think it was a trivial thing, acting, but I do think storytelling is an incredibly powerful thing that human beings have always gathered to hear stories, and I'm a little bit less ashamed to be part of something so insubstantial now, because I think it has value. So I think the question was, which do I prefer? The answer is I like a varied diet. I like great writing, great stories, interesting characters, and I don't really care what the medium is.
Because you've done so many different kinds of things, when you see a fan coming towards you to say hello, can you kind of predict what project, what type of project they will talk to you about?
Well, first of all, I've done a few war films, played a bunch of soldiers, so I can always tell if it's someone military. I can tell from their bearing and their haircut and stuff. I know it's going to be Black Hawk Down or Green Zone, maybe The Patriot. I was in Brotherhood playing a quite dangerous, deranged gangster. So when gangsters across the road or scary-looking people approach me, they're either going to take my money or high-five me because they like Michael Caffey. There's ladies of a certain age loved Jackson Brodie from Case Histories, who was a British detective I played for a couple of seasons that they like. And then the White House, amazingly, in Washington recently, I was there lobbying for the National Endowment for the Arts. They're all watching Dig. So politicians will either be watching Dig now or a miniseries I did that was Golden Globe nominated called The State Within. It's rather obnoxious to say Golden Globe nominated, but just so that people might remember what it was, which was set in Washington. So I can pretty much pick it out. What doesn't happen is that kids don't recognize me from Harry Potter. It's the parents. So the parents will drag kids up to me because they'll recognize me from other things, go, oh, that's the guy I know is in Harry Potter. They drag these poor kids up and they go, look who it is. And the kids just look completely, dazed and nonplussed. And they go, tell me who you are. And I go, hi, I'm Jason. I'm an actor. What's your name? And they go, no, but tell me who you are. And I go, well, I'm an actor. So I've been in some kids' films. They go, no, this is Lucius Malfoy in the Harry Potter films. And kids look me up and down and they go, no, you're not. And I go, oh, okay. And they go, no, but can you do the voice? And I go, I'm buying fish in the supermarket. Really? When they insist, sometimes I do it to make them go away. So very rarely do I get recognized in Harry Potter. People in their 20s, I can tell when it's Harry Potter because they start to shake. They start, I mean, it meant such a lot to so many people of a certain generation that they get uncontrollably giggly or teary or something, probably because they think they're in the presence of a wizard. And it's invariably disappointing when the best magic I can do is to take a selfie.
I'm glad you mentioned Globes on your other project because Emmy Awards ballots will go out here in a few weeks, and I think Dig is going to do well. It's going to be in that movie limited series category, a group of categories, and I think obviously a lot of the production behind the scenes folks I think are going to get recognized, music and art direction and all of that.
I always hope that people I work with get recognized because there's some, the people who put this show together coped with some extraordinarily difficult things. First of all, the cope with shooting in Jerusalem, which is not a place that anyone's ever shot before. So we had the keys to the city, so we shot underneath it and tunnels and caves and over and above it. And so to make that happen and to dress that and make it filmable then was an extraordinary achievement. But then when the conflict broke out, missiles were coming over and bombs were going off overhead, and we had to move to Croatia, where they had to recreate Israel, and New Mexico, where they had to recreate Israel and Arizona, and then go back to Croatia in the winter and make it summer in Jerusalem. So there's some extraordinary work going on here, and I thought there was some brilliant direction as well as writing. I thought, some of these things are really mini movies, not on a movie budget. And the other thing that may or may not get recognized in the Emmys is that the actors that came in, sometimes to do very small parts, were the very cream of Israel's acting royalty. And so someone would come in and I'd lean over to Gideon and I'd go, God, he's good. And he'd go, he's actually basically Israel's Marlon Brando. He's been a huge star for 40 years. So there's some magnificent acting in all of the parts, and particularly the smaller parts, that you don't normally get, that kind of depth of talent everywhere. But awards are a funny thing. I mean, it's fantastic to be nominated and get them because it celebrates all the hard work that goes into it. It's always, I think they're an odd thing because then there's people who think they deserve them. I've worked with people sometimes who think they deserve a nomination or a director deserves. Nobody deserves it. It's a strange and intangible thing. And it's not a measure of what's better than anything else. It's a measure of what the people who are voting are liking at the time. And so I've seen people get very depressed by not being nominated or very big-headed by getting nominated. And it's just, it's just a delight that someone goes, I love the thing you're doing. But in terms of it separating artists from each other, it can be an odd thing to encounter socially.
Well, I think it's going to do very well, and across the board. I hope you get in there on the acting side. It's a complex part, and I think you're really pulling it off well.
Thank you. Well, look, I'm very lucky because I get to choose to play complex parts. So I always know if I read a great script, I go, if I don't drop the ball on this, people are going to think I'm an interesting, nuanced, complicated human actor. But that's because that's what they've created on the page. So I've been lucky enough to be nominated a few times in my life for things and Golden Globes and BAFTAs and stuff. And every time it's been because somebody rather brilliant has given me the opportunity to hire, to showcase their work. And I do think in this, that Gideon and Tim have combined something amazing, which is a very plot-driven, thrilling adventure with very recognizable human people. So, it's like I've already won a prize, and everything else is gravy.
Well, I know you've talked about it. I know I've read, that this thing does end next week after this 10th episode. But will there be a second go around? Will there be a way to bring you back?
Well, first of all, you've got to wait to see who's still alive. There's that. There's already most of the cast members have been X'd out in red, and it was an upsetting thing when we're shooting. We all got very close to each other. We were in difficult circumstances, sometimes cold and freezing and dark and halfway around the world, and then you open the script and you go, oh, I guess they're going home this week. So let's see who's left alive at the end, and let's see, it really is a story with a closed ending. It doesn't have a little twist where, it's not Halloween where the body's missing or something. But if everybody absolutely loves it and there's a clamoring for it, then I'm sure that Gideon and Tim can come up with a great story. And if I'm alive, I'm certainly happy to strap on a badge again. But I don't want to spoil anything for anybody.
Well, alive or not, you could always do a prequel. You could always go back a couple of years before all of these events happen.
There you go. Or an identical twin, or a clone.
Exactly. You've got a twin out there somewhere if things don't go well next week.
Step out of the shower. It was all a dream.
Listen, Jason, thank you so much. I know you're headed back to London today. I thank you for your time and good luck with everything.
Thanks very much. Thanks for talking to me. Thanks for watching it.